Hello, a very lovely good morning from here in Delhi, and hope that each one of you, as always, are absolutely fine, and that's what we always actually pray for. So now in this particular session, we have decided to pick up a chapter which is a little bit what we call simple, no doubt about that. So bonus issue, this is the topic which we are going to pick up in this particular session. And as always, if you are ready, then we on our side are absolutely ready. Bonus issue. So this is the chapter which we are going to pick up, as I just told you, and also told you that it's a pretty simple one, not a very tough one. Even though the chapter is not a very tough one, but the fact is that there are always some provisions and we need to actually equip ourselves with every facet of that provision which govern the what we call accounting affairs of bonus issue. So what exactly the bonus issue is, and why a company or entity actually goes for bonus issue, and what exactly will be the accounting pattern of the bonus issue. So these are the questions which we are going to actually unfold in this particular what we call session, and we are going to have a lots of discussion both on theoretical aspects, and of course later on we are going to move over to the practical portion. Correct? So here we go, and we take up this particular chapter which I have already told you. It's a simple one. So ready? Here we go. So starting now, bonus issue. Correct? So let me actually pick up the pen first of all. Yes, here I have picked up the pen. First of all, you need not require to write unless and until I will give you some what we call guidance with respect to that. So first of all, try to understand the meaning of what we call bonus issue, what exactly the bonus issue is, what we mean by bonus issue. Word bonus. You have heard this word so often in normal conversation. Correct? What we mean by bonus? Bonus means something. The literal meaning of bonus in English is something over and above. Something over and above normal. For example, you must have seen actually, especially when you visit the market area of your nearby localities. So you must have seen actually shopkeepers are putting up banners that buy one, get one free. In fact, nowadays here in Delhi, actually lots of competition is going on, and we see down over here, and you must have seen even in your areas, cities and states, that so many what we call banners are hung over the what we call shops, and you must have seen over there they are offering what we call very lucrative offers, buy one get four free. So now suppose on one such shop, by having a look over the banner, you enter and you buy one shirt, and shopkeeper tells you, here sir, you buy one shirt for 2000 rupees, no doubt about that, but we are going to give you four shirts besides that also. Now these four shirts are nothing but bonus. Are you getting my point or not? Because what you are paying for one shirt that is 2000 rupees, but at the same time you are getting four extra shirts. So these shirts are nothing but a sort of bonus for you. So bonus issue in the context of the company is, we will see later on that so often entities, whenever I would use the word entities, I would be referring to companies. Correct? So whenever the entities, sometime in fact entities actually, they decide to offer shares to their shareholders. They decide to offer shares to their shareholders virtually free of cost. That means companies sometime actually issue shares to their existing shareholders, correct, and without charging anything. This is nothing but this is known as bonus issue. Now of course the $1 trillion question which springs in our mind actually, why a company is actually being so benevolent, why the company is doing so, why the company is issuing the shares free of cost to their existing shareholders. Correct? We will dwell upon that particular point, but in a short while. First of all, you pay attention. Could you actually tell me the entry if suppose I say that X Limited is a company, correct, and X Limited, let us say, decides to issue 1000 shares of rupees 100 each. Could you tell me the entry? You have done this entry so often in your class 11, 12, and even in your earlier phases of education. No doubt about that. Entry will be bank account debit to share capital, isn't it or not? Bank account debit to equity share capital, presuming these shares are equity. So your entry will be rupees what we call 1 lakh, isn't it or not? If company will issue 1000 shares of 100 each in the market, then quite obviously the entry could be only this one, bank account debit to equity share capital, which means the cash balance of the entity will increase, and at the same time equity share capital is getting credited. It means the equity share capital too will increase, isn't it? Because anything which relates to liability side, if it gets credited in the what we call entry, that particular item will also increase. So it's a very simple question which I asked of you, and each one of you are very well aware of the answer also. So if the company will issue 1,000 share in the market, entry will be bank account debit to equity share capital account 1 lakh, 1 lakh. Now I tilt my question. Suppose if the company issues these shares free of cost. If the company is going to issue these shares free of cost, then what will be the entry? Equity share capital, because shares will move out, no doubt about that, 1,000 shares into 100. You are going to credit equity share capital, no doubt about that. But will you receive any cash this time? You are not going to receive any cash. The reason is obvious, because company is offering these shares absolutely free of cost. So then, what I am going to debit here? Entry will be reserves account debit to equity share capital account. Are you getting my point or not? That means whenever a company will issue shares without charging anything from the shareholders, these shares are known as bonus share, and the entry will be reserves account debit to equity share capital. So the basic thing of the chapter is that whenever the company will go for the bonus issue, company will have to pass this entry. Company will have to debit its what we call resources, that is reserves, because company is not going to charge anything from the shareholders, so company will utilize its own accumulated reserves. When I say reserves, it means profits, because reserves actually gets accumulated out of profits. Whatever types of reserves are there in accounts, actually all such reserves actually generally gets what we call birth from the profits. However, there are some other reserves which get birth from other sources that we are going to talk about later on. So our entry will be reserves account debit to equity share capital. That means in case of bonus issue, the reserves of the company will get decreased, because as you can see here, that reserves are getting debited and equity share capital of the company will get increased. Is it clear to you or not? So, not a very tough one. So it's a very simple entry, very innocuous entry. So if the company is going to issue the shares free of cost to the existing shareholder, company is going to utilize its own reserves. That means for the purpose of the bonus issue, company will have to actually bank upon its own reserve. Now we come back to the point, why a company actually goes for bonus issue? Why a company is issuing its share virtually free of cost to the existing shareholders? Now I tell you the important, what we call point. Just pay attention here. Suppose there is a company, correct? And it has accumulated large amount of reserves. Large amount of reserves. Let us say there are 100 lakhs worth of reserves on the liability side of the company. Now, if I am going to ask you this particular question, is the position of the company is strong, healthy or not? Then sometime you might be tempted to think, obviously reserves are so high, so the position of the company is very healthy. No, nothing like that. Even what we call reserves too much in excess is not a very good sign of the company's functioning or the company's management. It is almost similar to a very healthy looking man, very fatty looking man, but inside he is having lots of what we call diseases. So even the problem is that even if the company will be having large amount of reserves, that doesn't what we call impresses the capital market. Because the shareholders of the company will be tempted to think that this company is not utilizing the reserves in a proper manner. Shareholder may also be tempted to think that company is earning heavy amounts of profits, but company is not distributing those profits among the shareholders. Quite obviously, if suppose you happen to be the shareholder of this particular company and you find that lots of reserves are being accumulated in the balance sheet, of course towards the liability side, you will be tempted to think, rather should I say, you will be forced to think that company is not distributing the what we call amount of profit in proportion to their earnings. So that is the problem. Even company knows that accumulation of large amount of reserves will throw suspicious signs in the capital market and more significantly among their shareholders. So in order to overcome such a scenario, company resorts to bonus issue. Are you getting my point or not? You can see I just told you when company will issue the bonus shares, the entry will be reserves account debit to share capital account. Is it clear to you or not? So company will utilize its resources. So this way round, company will actually earn the what we call respect of their shareholders, and in fact the loyalty of their shareholders also. That is the reason actually why a company goes for bonus issue. So the basic reason is that when a company accumulates large amount of reserves in its balance sheet, as I said actually, such a scenario sometimes become problematic for the company. So in order to overcome such a scenario, company generally resorts to bonus issue. Another important facet why a company goes for bonus issue besides this one is that, suppose if the company, before I move further, let me make it one point very clear. We will see that bonus issue sometime is also referred to as dividend in kind. You need not require to write at this moment unless and until I will tell you. Correct? I am just simplifying the what we call entire parameters of this particular chapter. First you have a look over that, and when I will ask you to write, then only actually go for that. Correct? Now we are well aware that whensoever the company will issue shares as bonus shares, then the entry will of course be reserves account debit to equity share capital, and why a company does so, even we are quite familiar with that now. Now the point is that bonus issue sometime is also referred to as dividend in kind, because shareholders are not actually paying anything for that. So that's a sort of dividend for what we call shareholders. Are you getting my point or not? Now, when a company gives dividend in kind, in other words, when the company actually gives bonus issue, company derives another advantage actually. What is that advantage? Presume that if the company would have paid the dividend instead of shares, here the company is paying the dividend instead of cash, company is issuing shares free of cost, of course. So that is why it is a sort of dividend, and it is known as dividend in kind also. Now, if the company would have had paid the dividend in cash, if the company would have had paid the dividend in cash, you can see, one, the cash balance of the company would have got reduced, and secondly, company would have had to pay dividend distributable tax. You must have actually heard this word in your taxation subject. As you know, a company, besides paying what we call income tax, is supposed to pay dividend distribution tax on the amount of dividend which it proposes and pays to what we call shareholders, isn't it or not? So by paying the dividend in kind, in other words, by making the bonus issue, company is what exactly the company is doing? Company is simply what we call making the payment of dividend instead of cash. Company is making the payment by way of shares. So it is bringing an advantage to the company in the sense that company will be able to save what we call dividend distribution tax, which the company otherwise would have had to pay. Is it clear to you or not? So these are the basic reasons actually why an entity actually sometime decides to issue shares free of cost among to its what we call shareholders. Is it clear to you or not? Now, just pay attention. When a company makes bonus issue, you are well familiar now that the entry is reserves account debit to equity share capital. I just told a moment ago also that whenever a company makes a bonus issue, the reserves of the company will get decreased. Reserves of the company will get decreased and equity share capital will get increased. No doubt about that. Now just pay attention. In fact, we will see later on that bonus issue is also known as capitalization of profits. Bonus issue is also known as capitalization of profits. Now the question is why it is so. The reason is that reserves in fact are now getting decreased and share capital is getting increased. Indirectly it means reserves are transforming themselves into capital. We can say it this way round. When I will pass this entry, it means reserves are getting transformed into capital. That is why it is known as capitalization of profit. Capitalization of profits means capitalization of reserves, because your reserves are now getting converted into what we call capital. Is it clear to you or not? So far what we have seen in this particular what we call short discussion, so far we have seen what exactly the bonus issue is, why a company goes for the bonus issue, and what exactly will be the entry for the bonus issue. The crux of the entire chapter is that whenever a company issues bonus share, the reserves of the company will get what we call a dip and the share capital of the company will get increased. Significantly, you need to actually keep in your mind that bonus issue is also referred to as bonus in kind, and sometimes it is also referred to as capitalization of profits. Why? Because the reserves of the company gets transformed into what we call capital, or put it in simple words, it means the reserves of the company gets converted into what we call share capital. Correct? So now we move over to the what we call business area. It means now you will have to write along with me, and whatever we have discussed so far, we will also write it. And of course, later on we are going to supplement our discussion as usual as we do, and you are well aware of it, with some practicals. So you write along with me. Now you have to write. Correct? So bonus issue. This is the chapter we are starting. Bonus issue. Simple chapter. Bonus issue. You might be wondering what happened to your handwriting. Sir, actually I am writing in today, actually in fact I am teaching by way of visualizer, and sometime you are not able to present your natural handwriting in it. Only problem is that. So bonus issue. But you need not require to worry about that. We will still keep the things neat and tidy as usual. Bonus issue. Correct? So you write along with me first of all, and then I will discuss the other facets. So whatever we have discussed, I am simply putting up those discussion into words. Write along with me. Bonus issue. Bonus issue. Bonus issue simply means right. Bonus issue simply means issuance of shares free of cost by an entity, by a company, among its shareholders. Correct? So bonus issue simply means issuance of shares by an entity among its shareholders. Next paragraph. It means when bonus shares are issued, as bonus shares, company does not receive any cash. Because bonus shares are being issued at free of cost, isn't it or not? So shareholder need not require to pay anything for what we call bonus shares. Since bonus shares are issued free of cost, company utilizes its reserves for the same. Company utilizes its reserves for the same. Since bonus shares are issued free of cost, company utilizes its reserves for the same. Correct? Now write along with me. Entry for bonus issue. Is reserves account debit. Reserves account debit to share capital account, to share capital account, to share capital account. Correct? Bonus issue, bonus issue is sometimes also referred to as bonus issue sometimes is also referred to as, let me pick up the red pen, bonus in kind. Bonus in kind. It is also known as sometime bonus in kind or dividend in kind. Dividend in kind, correct? Write in next paragraph. Bonus issue is also referred to as capitalization of profit. I told you why. Capitalization of profit. So it is also known as capitalization of profits. Reason is that when company will pass the entry reserves account debit to share capital, indirectly it means reserves are getting converted into share capital, because reserves will take a dip, as I told, and share capital of the company will increase. Now you will have to write along with me, and I will explain these points later on. Correct? I will explain all these points in a short while, but first you write along with me. Bonus issue is of two types. I haven't explained these points, don't worry about that. I will explain it in a short while, but first you write along with me. Bonus issue is of two types. I had to write two types, sorry. Two types. So bonus issue, we'll see later on, is of two types. One, A, bonus to fully paid share. Bonus to fully paid share. Bonus to fully paid shares. Bonus to fully paid share capital. And write B. You have written it, and now write B. Bonus to make partly paid up share. Bonus to make partly paid up share. Partly paid up share. Partly paid up shares as fully paid. Shares as fully paid. I will explain all these points, don't worry, in a short while. Just you write along with me for a moment, and then I'm going to explain all these points. So we have seen a new point that bonus issue is of two types, and one type of bonus issue is bonus to fully paid share, and second one is bonus to make the partly paid up shares as fully paid, correct? So if you have written, then we can move over to the other part. Correct? Now write along with me. Bonus to fully paid shares. Bonus to fully paid shares bonus to fully paid shares then is creating problem. Bonus to fully paid shares can be made only out of revenue reserves, out of revenue as well as capital reserves, So when a company will make the bonus issue to the fully paid shares, in that case such bonus issue can be made out of revenue as well as capital nature reserves. So we need to equip ourselves what exactly revenue reserves and capital reserves are also. So here I am writing revenue reserves. Revenue reserves, all these type of reserves are revenue reserves. Profit and loss account, credit balance of course, general reserve, general reserves, reserve fund, dividend equalization fund, dividend equalization fund. Dividend equalization fund. Dividend equalization fund is generally created by entities so that in case if there is paucity of profits, still we can pay dividend to the shareholders. As we know that the image of a company actually depends upon the fact that how regularly and how frequently company is paying the dividend. So in case if there is paucity of profit, it will become a little bit problem for us to pay the dividend. As we know, dividend is payable out of profits only. So in order to play safe, entities create dividend equalization fund or reserve. Dividend equalization fund. Then insurance fund. Workmen compensation fund. Workmen compensation fund. Workmen compensation fund. Workmen compensation fund. Contingency reserve. All these type of reserves are revenue reserves. All these type of reserves are revenue reserves, correct? Then we move over to capital reserves. You need to have a very good grounding with respect to the types of reserves, because this particular chapter, as I've already told you, deals with ultimately the utilization of reserves for the purpose of bonus issues. So that's the reason actually you need to equip yourself very well, and you need to have a very good foundation and good knowledge of what we call different types of reserves. So capital reserves. Capital reserves, just pay attention, capital reserves. Capital reserves, security premium, security premium, security premium, capital reserve, you used to pass entry share forfeited account debit to capital reserve, isn't it or not? So capital reserve is all, of course, obviously it is a capital nature reserve. Then capital redemption reserve, we will talk about this reserve later on. Capital redemption reserve. Capital redemption reserve. Correct? All these type of reserves fall under the category of capital reserves. So you need to understand that. Even profit prior to incorporation. Profit prior to incorporation. Profit prior to incorporation means profit earned by a company prior to its incorporation, that is of course of capital nature. Then you write balance in share forfeited account. Balance in share forfeited account. Balance in share forfeited account. So these are capital nature reserves, correct? So I have so far written what? I have written that bonus to fully paid share can be made out of revenue and out of what we call capital nature reserve. It is important point. You need to understand that. It is clear to you or not? Just wait. So you need to understand this point very clearly. So bonus to fully paid shares can be made out of revenue as well as out of capital nature reserves. Now, I am writing another point. Bonus to make partly paid up shares. Bonus to make partly paid up shares. Partly paid up shares as fully paid. Bonus to make partly paid up shares as fully paid bonus to make partly paid up shares as fully paid could be out of revenue reserves only. Could be out of revenue reserves only. Revenue reserves only. So important point is that whenever you are going to make a bonus issue, first of all, you need to be absolutely clear that whether the bonus is being actually made to fully paid shares or it is being made to make the partly paid of shares as fully paid, then accordingly you are going to utilize the reserves. So in the first part, as we have seen, whenever the company or entity will make the bonus issue to the fully paid share, both revenue as well as capital nature reserves can be what we call utilized. However, we'll see later on that preference is given towards capital reserve. If the company is making the bonus issue to the fully paid shares, that company has the liberty and freedom to use its revenue reserve as well as capital nature reserve, but still there is a finer point in it that you need to give preference to capital nature reserve. That means first you are going to use the capital nature reserve and then only you should go for revenue nature reserve. We'll talk about that particular point when we are going to pick up the practical part. As I've already told you, we are going to discuss all this point at length. You need not require to worry on that particular count, correct? Then bonus to make partly paid up shares can be made only out of revenue reserve. It means whenever the company will make the bonus issue to the partly paid up shares, correct? So in that particular case, you don't have any alternative. You can simply what we call utilize your revenue nature reserves. Is it clear to you or not? So if it is clear, then we move a little bit further. See here, bonus issue, or should I write here, following types of reserves. Following types of reserves. Following types of reserve cannot be used, very important, cannot be used for the purpose of bonus issue. Cannot be used for the purpose of bonus issue. For the purpose of bonus issue. Following types of reserve cannot be used for the purpose of bonus issue. A. Specific reserves. You cannot use specific reserves for the purpose of bonus issue. Is it clear to you? A specific reserve cannot be used for the purpose of bonus issue. That is very important. But just to have a little bit of idea what exactly is specific reserve, as the name itself is suggesting, is specific. Specific means particular. So these reserves are generally made to against some particular asset, as for example provision for doubtful debts. Provision for doubtful debts. Then following types of reserve cannot be used for the purpose of bonus issue: specific reserve, provision for doubtful debts. Correct. I will use the next page then. Provision for doubtful debts. One I have written here. Next I will write over here. Correct. Provision for doubtful debts. Then investment fluctuation fund. Investment fluctuation fund. Investment fluctuation fund. Investment fluctuation fund is generally created to meet any decline in value of investments. Correct? Because we know that company invests their funds in the shares and debentures of the other entities, so there might be some loss due to decline in market value. In order to meet such loss, generally entities actually create investment fluctuation fund. Similarly, provision for depreciation. Provision for depreciation. Asset replacement reserve. Asset replacement reserve. All these are specific reserve, and remember one thing: you cannot use what we call a specific reserve for the purpose of bonus issue. That means when you are going to confront the problem with respect to bonus issue, so you will have to take care of the fact that you need to have the art of classifying the various reserves into capital reserves, revenue reserve, specific reserves, etc. Also, you cannot utilize statutory reserves. Statutory reserve, S-T-A-T-U-T-O-R-Y, statutory reserves. What are statutory reserve? Name itself is signifying the fact that statutory means something for which we are bounded. Statutory means there is a legal foundation that we have to actually create these reserves. Generally, entities or companies which are operating in a notified zone. Notified zone means such zones which the government has notified for a particular what we call area, or should I say for particular development, like a special economic zone, free trade zones, electronic parks, software parks. So these are nothing but your what we call notified zones, and the entities which operate in these zones are legally bounded to create what we call statutory reserves. Correct? Now, examples of statutory reserves are export profit or export profit surplus sometime. It is written. It is also known as foreign project reserve account. Foreign project reserve. Correct? Then investment allowance reserve. Earlier there was investment fluctuation fund. Now I am writing investment allowance reserve. Investment allowance reserve. Investment allowance reserve is also known as development reserve. It is also known as development reserve. It is also known as development reserve. Is it clear to you or not? So these reserves you cannot utilize for the purpose of the bonus issue. Remember one thing. Now, some important aspects. So far we have seen that bonus issue is of two types. Correct? One, bonus to fully paid shares, and another one is bonus to make the partly paid of shares as fully paid. We have also seen that bonus to fully paid of share can be done out of revenue as well as capital nature reserves. However, we will give preference to capital nature reserve first, then to the revenue reserves. And second type is bonus to make the partly paid of shares as fully paid, and such type of bonus issue could be made out of what we call revenue reserves only. Besides, we have seen actually that we cannot utilize statutory reserve and specific reserve. And what I am writing now, see here, this is very important to understand. See, such capital reserves such capital reserves which haven't been realized in cash. Now this is a tricky point, and sometimes student fraternity doesn't actually comprehend it the way it should be comprehended. So I will explain this point here. Just pay attention. I will take a rough sheet and I will try to explain this point. Actually, we have seen as far as reserves are concerned, one is revenue reserve, another one is capital nature reserves. Then we have also seen a specific reserve, we have also seen a statutory reserves. These reserves from the context of this particular chapter are irrelevant, correct? So we can narrow down our discussion now that for the purpose of bonus issue, we can use revenue reserves and capital nature reserve. Of course, for the first type of bonus issue, that is when bonus issue is made to the fully paid share capital, we can use revenue reserves and capital nature reserves. However, as far as second type of bonus issue is concerned, only revenue nature reserves can be utilized. That means, as far as this particular chapter is concerned, we should have a good focus of what we call revenue and capital nature reserves. Now, as far as capital nature reserves are concerned, capital nature reserves can be further classified into two types: realized in cash and not realized in cash. Realized in cash and not realized in cash. You need not require to write at this moment. This is rough work. Not realized in cash. What does it mean? Realized in cash and not realized in cash. What does it mean? So I need to explain this particular point, and you need to understand it very, very well to have a good grip of this particular chapter. Just pay attention. Suppose, what should I say? Well, there is a company, correct? And company issues one share of ₹100 each at a premium of ₹10. At a premium of ₹10. What will be the entry? If a company will issue one share of ₹100 each at a premium of ₹10, then could you tell me the entry? Entry will be bank account debit. How much company is going to receive? 110, because one share is moving out at a premium of 10. So 100 is the face value. At a premium of 10, company will receive 110. Then you will write here 2 equity share capital 100. You are going to write, of course, 2 security premium 10. This will be the entry. Correct? Do you agree with me? Yes, sir. Now, in the balance sheet, I will write here bank 110. I will write equity share capital 100. I will write security premium 10. Now, pay attention. Security premium we know is a capital nature reserve. Now, this security premium has been realized in cash, because we know that this security premium is getting generated on account of extra cash which the company is receiving. So we can say in this case that this security premium has been realized in cash. Now pay attention further. See here. Now suppose a company buys a machinery. Company buys a machinery for ₹110. Suppose this is another case, correct? A company bought a machinery worth ₹100, you can say 100 lakhs, no problem, correct, for ₹100. And company, let us say company bought the machinery for 110, and company issued one share of ₹100 each at a premium of ₹10 to discharge the purchase consideration. What is the purchase consideration? This is 110. This is your purchase consideration. So what will be the entry? Entry, of course, will be machinery account debit. Company bought the machinery for 110, and company is discharging the amount not by way of cash. company is issuing equity share capital of 100 each at a premium of 10. Now this will be the entry. Are you getting my point or not? Company is not receiving any cash, company is receiving machinery worth rupees 110. Now this time security premium which will appear in the balance sheet, of course at rupees 10, this is not realized in cash. Do you understand the difference between the what we call realized in cash and not realized in cash? This item is not realized in cash because we are not receiving any cash against this item. So different types of capital nature reserves can be segregated into two further categories, realized in cash and not realized in cash. I will give you another example. I will take another rough sheet to make my point clear, because this point need to be clear. For example, suppose there is an appreciation in the fixed asset. My entry will be fixed asset account debit to asset revaluation reserve. This is the entry. Appreciation in fixed asset. Now this asset revaluation reserve will appear, let us say appreciation is worth rupees 10, it will appear what we call in the balance sheet. This is a capital nature reserve. Revaluation reserves are also capital nature reserve, but the problem is that this time again this is not realized in cash because we are not receiving any cash. Are you getting my point or not? So remember one thing, only such capital nature reserves can be utilized which have been realized in cash, and such capital nature reserve which haven't been realized in cash cannot be utilized for the purpose of the bonus issue. Did you get this particular point or not? So shortly we are going to have a meeting with you. I'm just stopping here, and in the next session we will take at length all these points which we have written here, and we will still supplement further. Correct? So till then, it's a short bye. I'm coming back within 5 minutes, but I'm stopping this particular session here itself.